Hello. Today, I would like to share with you a unique form of science that I have discovered, hidden in the ancient texts and symbols we find around the world. This science was slowly lost to us over many generations of time, but its secrets stay safely stored in ancient symbols and texts, like time capsules of information, put away for a later generation to discover. If you would allow me a few minutes of your time, I will show you something amazing that will at the very least leave you questioning how much we really know about the science of our beautiful and vast universe. I will start with this: the flower of life symbol. This ancient symbol can be found around the world, and is said to hold many scientific secrets in its math and geometry. Many of our great scientific minds have studied this symbol, and unraveled so many of its secrets, so why would I think I could decode anything further, with my limited education? Well, this is because they seem to have completely overlooked the biggest clue given when solving the puzzle. You see, the flower of life has at its core the ancient seed of life symbol. This symbol is said to represent the origins of all life in the universe. But most importantly, it is telling us that these symbols not only contain physics, mathematical and geometrical data encoded within them, but we also need to use the science of biology to decode them. A seed and a flower are biological in nature. These are biology symbols. We need to include all the sciences to unravel the secrets that are hidden within. The most popular theory today for the origins of life is abiogenesis, where life evolved from inorganic or inanimate substances. But these symbols are saying that the core ingredients for life are contained within all energy and matter, from the very start of our universe. With this in mind, let me show you how I decode these symbols. Since our science has taught us that all things in the universe are made up of energy, vibrating at different frequencies, I will assume that these symbols represent what we call energy, which includes the energy we can see, which is light energy. We have been taught that light is emitted from somewhere within an atom, as vibrating photons that travel outward in all directions at the fastest speed possible, in straight lines. The problem with that is, the further it goes, the more photons it would have to emit, in order to fill all the space that is widening between the photons, as they travel. It would take an infinite amount of photons emitted repeatedly, to travel endlessly in an endless sphere, filling in all the spaces as you go, and reaching everywhere, equally. An infinite number of photons at one time would require an infinite amount of energy emitted repeatedly, from an atom that has a small, measurable amount of energy put into it. That doesn't seem right to me. And I have never encountered an explanation that solves this. Until I examined the flower of life symbol. And it shows light energy travels something like this, and requires finite, measurable amounts of energy put in to do it. Let me show you how. If you look at the flower of life symbol, you will see two patterns. The 12 circles that are straight in line with the seed of life circles from the center are arranged so they are touching the green circles of the seed of life that are next closest to center, while the others, which I will color yellow, are arranged closer to the center, and overlap the circles of the seed of life. If we place a circle around each row, we can see how the yellow circles are arranged in a different pattern than the white or green circles. However, if we are meant to view this as three-dimensional, we can rotate our surrounding circles 90 degrees, and move the yellow circles up until they touch the surrounding circles, and three-dimensionally, these are all the same pattern. Now, if we remove all the yellow circles, we get this: Metatron's cube, an ancient symbol attributed to Enoch from the Genesis story. Metatron's cube is said to represent the blueprint for the creation of the universe. It is also the final clue needed to solve the puzzle. We now have a blueprint and the materials needed, which are energy and life, to form a theory of how our universe began, and the science of how it works. Let me show you how I used this blueprint, and found some interesting things along the way. I need you to imagine a universe with no detectable matter. It is spherical, and every sphere is defined by its center point. If nothing else exists except its center point, that point has no size. It is both the biggest, and the smallest thing in existence, at the same time. The universe, is a single point, and has a size of 0. So we will call it the Big Zero, the Big O, or as I like to call it, the Omega. It is pure energy. And the flower of life symbol has shown us, that it contains all of the life in our universe, making it living energy. You have to think of the Omega as a single, biological energy cell, and not just a bundle of energy. It is energy, that has the ability to replicate, or reproduce itself, into any form, or amount of energy. If it reproduces enough energy at once, that energy becomes different types of energy, or matter, depending on the amount of energy involved. In the beginning, the Omega reproduces a single spherical cell of itself, an alpha cell. Unlike the Omega, this cell contains a very small, measurable amount of energy. Modern-day science would call this a photon. But it contains life, and has the ability to reproduce, so it is much more than that. The best way I have found this represented, is the ancient Egyptian Ankh, so I will call this alpha cell, an Ankh. The Ankh reproduces and splits into 4 cells, while the Omega reproduces another alpha Ankh in the center, that sends these 4 cells outwards, in this pattern. These 4 cells form the 2-dimensional pattern needed to grow 3-dimensionally in all directions. Since I am calling these cells Ankh, I will make a symbol to represent them. First, I will change the spheres into circles, and to represent reproduction, I will reduce the size of 3 of them, until they just touch the bigger circle, and connect them to each other, like 3 children added to the family tree. Because these cells move outward at the speed of light, I believe they may actually be more teardrop-shaped, and that is why the Egyptians depicted the Ankh something like this. However, because I am using a blueprint that depicts circles, everything I show from here on will be circular or spherical. Getting back to the beginning, the Omega reproduces an Ankh cell, which reproduces and splits into 4 cells, which individually reproduce and split into 4 more cells, and so on. Meanwhile, the Omega is reproducing a new alpha Ankh at the center each time. The Ankh cells continue to reproduce and divide into 4 more cells. And as they spread outward, in this pattern, the cells will overlap each neighboring cell after every second reproduction cycle, and merge with each other to form 1 cell again. They reproduce and split into 4 cells, which reproduce and split into 4 more cells, that merge and become 1 cell again. This pattern repeats to form an infinite sphere. The energy of the universe grows from the center out, like this, in all directions 3-dimensionally, and continues to grow outward, at the speed of light, infinitely. This is how energy and light grow, and travel, and this is how the universe was made. From energy. 1 reproduction at a time. Let's see this again with the blueprint, Megatron's cube, centering it, and we get a better 3-dimensional representation of the flower of life. Here, it forms the seed of life. And, here is the flower of life, and Metatron's cube. The seed of life pattern, is continuously repeated at the poles. And, all around the equator area. And isn't it fitting, that each layer, is made up of consecutive, double helixes? Like DNA. So far, what this is showing us, is how Ankh cells, containing the greatest amount of energy an Ankh can have, before changing into another form of energy, or matter, will reproduce and grow. It is depicting the highest frequency of light. Instead of frequency, let's think reproduction rate. If we lower the energy in the cells, we lower the reproduction rate, and since they are all traveling outward, at light speed, they begin to spread out, and travel further, in between reproduction cycles. Let's watch the same demonstration with lower energy, and equal spaces between the cells, and get a better understanding how light works. This is the same pattern of spheres as before, traveling outwards at the same speed, only with less energy they spread out further, in between each growth cycle. Now, Let's break the sphere down to just one of the original 4 cells. And you see that one cell will grow in 4 directions, and the cells keep spreading out, until eventually, they will overlap, and form a complete sphere again. Let's break this down even more, and view just the one straight line at the center. And we can see the pattern they travel in, more clearly. Now, if we decrease the reproduction rate, or frequency, they spread out, like this. Let's illuminate them. And take a look at the pattern they make. Here is a view from the side. And, if we rotate 90 degrees, we can view them, as they travel toward us. Let's trace the path of the cells, traveling along the vertical axis. Here is the path of the cells, as they travel the horizontal axis. And now, we will trace both. Notice how they travel in a wave pattern, both vertically and horizontally. This is why we have trouble deducing whether light is made up of waves or particles. If we examine light, we can find evidence for both. Let me ask you this. Even if I am wrong, and these symbols are not depicting light energy, isn't it amazing that by following this ancient blueprint to build a model, we get something that grows outward, like individual particles, and also like waves? This is so similar to how we believe light travels, that if it is a coincidence, it is a very big one. Using this theory, we no longer have to question if there is other life in our universe. Life is everywhere, in the energy, and energy created all the matter around us, not the other way around, where matter created life. There are so many possibilities for how the matter of the universe was formed using this model, that I would have to make a separate video for that. But if we go back to the beginning, and the omega reproduces an alpha cell with a greater amount of energy in it than an onc can have, that onc will reproduce differently and become electrons, protons and neutrons, which combine to form different atoms, depending on the amount of energy they received. And they are spread out throughout the universe, in a similar way to how light energy grows outward. Each atom still contains the onc that created it. And if an atom receives energy, the onc within it will grow and give off light. If an atom, or its onc, receive enough energy, they will become some other form of matter particle, or atom. And the cycle of life continues. If you look at 3-dimensional Bohr models of different atoms, their nuclei will all look like our 3-dimensional model of the flower of life at some stage in its growth. If you just change the onc spheres into protons and neutrons. Because we are carbon-based life forms, comprised of matter, our instinct is to think matter controls and uses energy. But it is energy that creates, controls, and uses matter to do its bidding. Our souls are beings of energy that use material bodies to experience the universe. We are living inside our bodies, which are inside and are part of a biological entity we think of as our universe. I will sum all this up with this. Energy was and is everything without matter, while matter is and was nothing without energy. Only energy has life, and not the matter it resides in. There is so much more I would like to share, but that will have to be at another time. Until then, I hope you enjoyed your stay, and have yourself a good day.